You know him from Shark Tank. You know him from his many media appearances. He is Mr. Wonderful. Kevin O'Leary, though, down in Mar-a-Lago over the weekend with Jordan Peterson and Danielle Smith, trying to talk to President-elect Donald Trump about, well, all things trade in Canada ahead of time. Uh, Kevin O'Leary, thanks for taking the time to join me.
No problem.
I wanted to talk to you because you've been putting out an interesting idea for a little while. But before we get to the idea, I've had two main responses from liberals who have reacted to you going down to Mar-a-Lago, not once, but now twice. And one is they say that you're trying to sell out the country. We'll get to that in a second. But the other criticism they have is your white suit. Do you want to take a moment to defend the white suit at Mar-a-Lago this weekend?
Don Johnson, Miami Vice, baby. That's what it's about. That was a lot of fun, and Mar-a-Lago is a fun place. And it's not a formal state visit of any kind. It's an invitation to an individual's personal home. And I'm going to wear whatever I like. I don't care what the liberals think.
Yeah, well, look, if people don't go to Florida, if they don't go to sunny destinations, they don't know. But you looked at, in Toronto, in New York, that would be out of place. In Florida,
Yeah,
that's
balmy
right
80
on.
degree day, just absolutely sunny. It was fantastic. It was good fun. And I think President-elect Trump liked it.
So let's talk about you taking Danielle Smith to meet the president-elect. I know you've talked a lot about a possible data center, AI center, server farm in Alberta. Was that part of why you decided to connect with Danielle Smith and take her down to see the president-elect?
That's the beginning of our relationship. I had been working on some projects in New York, North Dakota, West Virginia, and one of her associates called me months ago and said, "Why don't you bring any of this capital to Canada?" I said, "Well, Danielle, everybody knows you can't get permits. Gerald Butts changed that way back. You're powerless to do anything. It's a shame, and that's why the Canadian dollar has collapsed, and that's why GDP per capita has collapsed. That's why debt per capita is up." Butts, as you recall, was doing all the policy for Joe in his first majority mandate, and he put
Hmm.
in place legislation that pulled the permitting to Ottawa, and then he declined to do any permits. So you can't get anything done in Canada, and Sovereign Wealth figured that out. It took him about 2 years. And we're not even included on the cap tables anymore of many sovereign wealth funds. Canada is a disaster. And I saw the same thing early on, and I stopped investing in Canada because of that. And you can see the numbers are horrific. And in the end, what got Trudeau done was the fact that he basically wiped out Canadians' net worth by 41%, as defined by the dollar collapse. And so it was time to get rid of him, and it's a good thing. But she said to me, "No, no, I sued Gerald Butts and Trudeau back in October of 2023, and I won in the Supreme Court. I have the right to offer you a permit." I said, "Well, that's a new story, because with the Trudeau peso, the Canadian dollar is worthless now. Everything's selling at a massive discount. Maybe I should come look." And I sent a team up there, and we started with a helicopter looking at sites for data centers that she suggested we look at. And Carl Agren, he's the granddaddy of data centers, flew in from Abu Dhabi, and he's actually an American. It was an officer that built the first data centers, the hypercenters. Probably the most well-known guy. He's on my team now. And after he landed, because he didn't have any cell service in the helicopter, he got off the chopper. I could still hear the blades whirling, and he said, "Buy it all. They have a unicorn here. Buy it all. This thing is incredible. I've never seen anything like it." And that was the beginning of our relationship, and she was able to deliver the permits. So I'm bringing back $70 billion back to Alberta. I think I'm one of the first to bring capital back. And Danielle, I said to her, "Look, Danielle, nobody believes you. You're going to have to get on the road with me to visit sovereign wealth funds all around the world. And we're going to have to tell them you're open for business," because Trudeau shut it down. As you know, he wiped out our relations with India, Egypt, China, you name it. That guy was a walking disaster. And so,
And now Gerald Butts, by the way, is behind Mark Carney's campaign to become the next Liberal leader and
yeah,
prime
no, I
minister.
heard that rumor. And if that's true, people should understand in Canada, Gerald Butts is Canada's Antichrist. He is
Oh,
Beelzebub.
those are strong words.
No, 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 it gets worse. He has blood on his hands because he impoverished 25% of the Canadian population. They're now living below the poverty line. He wiped out the economy of Canada. He is sheer evil. And the fact that he would come back, I mean, I've got to let every Canadian know, the only reason I'm able to bring capital back is I've told them, Trudeau's gone, Butts is gone, Liberals are gone, we're going to open the country back up. If he gets near government, the country will go bankrupt. That's what will happen. That guy is Antichrist. That's what he is. What he did, he was a friend of Trudeau's and they were in liberal arts. They changed the entire economy of Canada with policy that shut down capital from the resource industries. I don't care if it was oil, gas, mining, precious minerals, forestry, you name it. He wiped them out. It takes 19 years to get a permit in Canada now, except if you're working in Alberta. So, Butts, I hope that Canadians understand how important it is to keep him away from government. He
Yeah.
is the Canadian Antichrist.
Let's talk about the trip to Mar-a-Lago. Both from the perspective of Danielle Smith. I know you can't speak for Premier Smith. I'll talk to her myself, but uh, I had liberals literally saying to me, and these are people that I know, not just anonymous trolls on Twitter, saying to me, well, Kevin O'Leary is just a robber baron trying to sell the country. Before we talk about, how it went for Premier Smith in Alberta, uh, I think people are misunderstanding what you're saying. Now, I don't agree with everything that you're saying about the economic union. To me, it sounds like you want to do a European Union version for North America. I've not been a fan of the EU. I supported the idea of Brexit. And so I'm hesitant about an EU type model. But you've got all these people who love the EU, think the EU is, the model we should work on for everything. And then you suggest that sort of thing for Canada and the United States, and suddenly you're a traitor to the country. You're a robber baron trying to sell. Explain your idea in simple terms. What are you talking about the 51st state? Are you literally trying to sell Canada to Donald Trump so you can make money? What is your idea?
No, I never said any of that. I mean, I can understand how the Liberals might have said that. I'm not sure they're loving me. I told Trump to stop wasting his time with Liberals. They're going to get eradicated in the next election. So these meetings he's having with Trudeau and anybody else that went down there that are liberal, waste of time. And I hope it didn't fall on deaf ears. I really do. I think, look, you got to give Canada a few months to elect new leadership, and then you can negotiate in good faith. Right now, it's rudderless, it's leaderless. The Liberals will get wiped out. He is not a fan of Trudeau. He's not a fan of Freeland. Um,
No,
I think
John
everybody
Bolton
knows that.
said that Trump thinks of Trudeau as a Twinkie in an interview the other
Well, I
day.
mean, I just didn't want him to waste his time, and I'm just one individual speaking, and I'm a Canadian investor, I'm a Canadian citizen, and so we never talked about selling the country. That never happened. The sovereignty is not on the table. Everybody knows that already. We did talk about, when people have to understand something with Donald Trump, and Canadians are kind of confused with all the rhetoric going back and forth, and I understand that. When dealing with Trump, you have to be able to learn how to distinguish what's noise and what's signal. You have to distinguish the signal from the noise. The noise is, I want to buy Canada at a discount. The signal is, I think we should explore a much powerful, more dynamic, more productive economic union. How do we do that? So there's a few ideas been floating around. Number one, merge the currencies. Every single commodity that we sell in Canada, and oil and gas and everything else, is denominated in US dollars. Every Canadian, almost all of them, have American accounts. But if you asked any Canadian, ask 10 of them right now, would you like to trade your Trudeau pesos for American dollars? You'd get 110% of them saying yes. And so that's number one. And of course, you'd have to get a couple of seats on the Fed. You'd want some interaction between the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve, because we're trying to create a massive economy that
So,
is,
so separate countries, but a single currency.
Yes, well, that's just one idea. We start there, okay? Because I don't see any problem with that. There's no sovereignty issue. Nobody's selling anything to anybody, but we're joining many countries and many commodities are denominated by the US dollar. It's the most liquid currency on earth. And so I
When
think
we talk
Canadians,
about the price of oil, whether we're talking Western
everything's
Canadian
denominated in
Select,
US dollars.
it's US
Everything.
dollars.
Yeah, okay. So you as a Canadian would have US dollars and you would trade that. You can go to the States and spend them or keep them in Canada. It doesn't matter. Number two, tariffs. We don't want any tariffs. I don't want tariffs. Tariffs are a negotiating tool. I don't want tariffs north-south, but I don't want them east-west either. And that's one of the things that's frustrated the U.S. Take the state of Virginia or Vermont. They are very pissed about this wall we've put up on dairy. We take money from Alberta, spend billions of dollars subsidizing dairy farmers in Quebec who take their produce and throw it out. Make cheese, make milk, make eggs, and throw them out. We just pay farmers for nothing. We collapse the value of the commodity, and the people in Vermont want to compete. They want us to compete, and we want to compete. We want to sell our goods to people in Vermont, vice versa. I want to be able to buy wine from British Columbia and Ontario when I'm there. Can't do it. So all of these tariffs have to come down, and it becomes one giant union of free-flowing goods and services. Far more productive, way better. There's no tariffs. We'd be a behemoth economy. Behemoth. Nobody could compete with us, including China, who everybody in Canada should worry about. Third idea floating around, I've just nicknamed it the uni, but you can call it anything you want. This may be where people thought it had something to do with the European Union, but basically any Canadian with a passport, Canadian citizen in good standing with his government, his or her government, or same in the US, a citizen with a US passport in good standing, could apply for a uni. Either government would have a veto right. So they both have to agree who gets these. Whoever gets a uni, free access to any state or province at one tax rate, let's say 21%, no deductions. Free flow across the border anytime you want with a uni, but it's better than that. The uni could be used to control immigration. Here's what we do in Canada. We invite a bunch of students to Waterloo for microrobotics, the most coveted degree on earth, and we throw half of them out of the country after they graduate. How stupid is that? They come in with a uni. We do a background check. We make sure we're inviting them in. We're people we want to have live in Canada, give them the uni citizenship. They can create a company in Waterloo or anywhere else after they graduate. They don't have to leave with all that knowledge and all the money we spend giving them that knowledge. Same thing with MIT. The uni controls who comes in. It controls border as well.
We would have to have some correlation, some coordination with our immigration policy, which, by the way, has become.
You think we have a good immigration policy, Ken? You think Trudeau did a
Oh
good
no,
job
we
on
don't.
that?
We don't. We used to. We don't anymore.
No, of course we don't. This would solve the problem. We would have some standards for who comes into our combined economy. You can't be a terrorist. If you're a person we don't want, you're a bad guy. No, thank you. But we want you to come in and work and grow our economy. You get a uni. It's that easy. Look, there's a lot of ideas being floated around. There's nothing wrong with floating ideas. I don't represent the Canadian country. I am just an individual that happens to be talking to another individual that happens to be becoming the next president of the United States. What's wrong with that? As far as I'm concerned, nothing. I started talking to him over 2 years ago when I expressed an interest in buying TikTok, and that's exactly what's happening right now. So I need to be working with him as I have to work with the Biden administration. But there's no reason not to have this narrative, to put ideas forward. I see no reason whatsoever. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, maybe you have your own, but it's time to talk. Separate the noise from the signal and look at the opportunity the signal presents. That's what I tell every one of my fellow Canadians.
Okay, so help me out to understand Donald Trump then, because I think I understand him fairly well, and I think I try to be a Trump realist. Most of the Canadian media are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome and screaming "Orange Man bad." Um, but you gave an interview a little while ago where you were talking about noise and signal, and you said Elon Musk is 100% signal. What's Trump? I think there's some noise in there.
I think Trump is probably more transactional, more bombastic, and more of a deal maker. You know, when I go to buy a plant or a piece of equipment, Let's say I'm going to spend $100 million. I go down there, I take a tour with the seller. First thing I say is, I know you think it's worth 100 million, but I saw a rat by the boiler. I think it's worth 20. And you start negotiating. That's exactly what Trump does. When he puts out something like buying Alberta, because, frankly, Danielle Smith is a very, very important person in North America. There's more oil and gas in Alberta than all of the United States. She is the trade deficit, $185 billion. And Trump wants the pipeline. Of course he's going to take a meeting with her. Of course he's going to talk to her. Of course she wants to talk to him. She's the only politician in Canada now that has a personal relationship with Trump and many of his cabinet. Why? She took the time to come down to Mar-a-Lago for a couple of days and work the room. That woman
So
knows how to work a room.
it was described by critics as, oh, she just met him at the table. It was just going by to kiss the ring. There was no substance there. You were there.
She was there for 2 days. She had multiple chances to talk to Trump. You're not going to get a lot of time. There's 1,000 people trying to meet him from all around the world. You don't have to go to Davos anymore. No point in getting on a plane and going to Zurich. You just have to get to Mar-a-Lago. That's what you have to do. She got plenty of time with him, and more importantly, as importantly, I should say, with many of his cabinet. She worked the room. She's way ahead of anybody else in Canada right now. She's smart to have done that. And so, you got everybody throwing barbs at Trump. They don't have a relationship with him. One day they might, but right now, she's the leader of the pack.
Okay, so should other Canadian politicians, we have no federal leadership right now. Justin Trudeau, as
I
you
know
said,
that. That's why
is
there's a
done.
void. That's why listen, I went down and asked Trump personally, look, cut some slack for Canada. Give us a chance. Give us a few months to elect a leader. He may not do that. I have no idea, but he understands our dilemma. We have no leadership. There's no
Premier
point in
Smith said
negotiating with a minister who's going to get wiped out in the next election.
Premier Smith said that she thinks that the tariffs are coming next week, regardless of what anybody says or does, and we should be prepared for that. So that was
Of
her
course, look, she's hedging her
assessment.
bets, but she
Yeah.
has something no one else has, a personal relationship with Trump and many of the people that matter, like Doug Burgum. She'll be able to pick up the phone. They know who she is. Many of the people in that room knew who she was. She's a big deal. She's energy security of the U.S. She's 60% of the imports. It's a big deal. And so and Trump wants that pipeline. She's the queen bee on the pipeline too.
Could
So,
someone like Doug Ford turn around and say, you know what, I want to go down to Mar-a-Lago as well?
but it's too late now. I mean, that opportunity's gone. Trump is now in Washington or on his way. He's not going to do any more meetings. It'll be off the record. Everything will be on the presidential record. It was a missed opportunity for any politician that didn't take that opportunity up. That was a chance to meet them personally on his own home where he's very comfortable, where you can have a conversation that's off the record.
All right. Kevin OLeary, thanks for taking the time to chat today.
You got it. Take care. Thanks.